In a moment when intellectual, respectful dialogue is needed now more than ever, the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans presents its signature speaker series. As we look at our nation, the association's speaker series will help us to understand how we grow, change, and drive our collective future forward. Join us for this journey, discovering various perspectives. We invite you to take part in this important conversation. The Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans presents its signature speaker series.
Ambassador Barrett, thank you very much. And Dr. Harris, I thank you. That introduction was better than any eulogy anybody could ever give me. Thank you so much. It's amazing. I didn't realize I was anywhere that good at doing what I do, but I thank you very, very much. And good morning, dear friends. I'm privileged this morning to share with you a few observations about challenges and opportunities in higher education. I don't claim to be an expert in the field, but rather someone who has done it and learned a few things. And I hope this morning I can bring some thoughts that all of us can find useful. That subject is, of course, very dear to our hearts, all of us in Horatio Alger, because after all, we're all committed to planting seeds of greatness in the minds, hearts, and souls of our scholars. It isn't about giving money, it's about transforming human beings. It's about preparing these scholars for the world as it is going to be. Now, as you said very well this morning, and I thank you for that, I'm not an academic by trade. I was in business for 30 plus years. I came to this country looking for the American dream, David, and found it. Everywhere I looked, north and south, east and west. If you work hard enough and smart enough, you can make something of your life. And so I was involved in banking and retail and consulting. And then I was going to be the chairman of the board of High Point University, my undergraduate alma mater. And the trustees came to see me, notably Bob Brown, that all of you know, and his ilk, who knocked at my door and persuaded me to leave what I was doing to become president of my undergraduate alma mater. The farthest thing from my mind, education was not something I chose to be in. And so after much prodding and threats, I decided I'll give it 2 years. I said, I'll come in and give it 2 years. Who would have ever guessed that in a few years we hit the Great Recession, the most disrupted economic times the last 90 years of America's history. And then in 2020, we hit COVID. I don't think the school would have survived had we not really taken the steps that we've taken thereafter. And so I said, okay, I'll do it for a couple of years. That was in 2005. This is 2022, and I'm still president. And the question is why? And the answer is simple. I fell in love. I fell in love with the students. I fell in love with the notion that you can be a steward in life, that maybe my experience in business can bring some thoughts, some ideas, some strategies, some tactics that could help these kids who enter the hollowed hallways to learn, but who must exit the hollowed hallways to serve, to make the world a better place. So I think I'm a better man because I chose to do that. And my goodness, our journey has been nothing short of the American dream. We worked hard and smart, and today our school have taken over in a magical way. I would have never, ever guessed. But you know what? God at work. And so I want to share with you some observations that I've learned along the pathway of life in the last 18 years. Higher education is not broke. In spite of everything we hear, the books that I've written, the articles that I've written, the people opining left and right, that higher education has just gone to hell. That it is just made up of a bunch of highly liberal people who just want to change the world. I noticed today we have a speaker who wrote a book called Woke Inc. I'm looking forward to listening to that speaker. The reality of it is, higher education is like a pencil. If you had a pencil with you and it's very sharp at one end, you can write with it easily. That's how higher education should be. Occasionally, some colleges get a little stale, and they need to be retransformed, recreated, recessed to reassess who we are and what we can be. And the irony of a pencil is at the other end, you have a little eraser, and you can erase some of the strategies that didn't work. But in the middle of the pencil is lead, strong lead. And that's how I see higher education. It is strong in its foundation. Historically, it is a profoundly useful tool to changing minds, to educating people, to creating research, and all the rest. Now, for me personally, I'm an immigrant whose life has been filled with adversity. My father died when I was 6 years of age. Amazon Network did a story of my life 2-3 years ago, and they asked me this question: if you could have changed one thing in your life, what would it have been? I know the answer to that question. If I could have changed one thing in my life, I'd have much rather have had a dad who would have read me a book, sang me a song, thrown me a frisbee, taken me to the circus, or just talked with me man to man. But that was not my fate. It's amazing about life, that out of adversity can emerge abundance. This room is filled with stories like that. So that was my mom. My mom was 4th grade educated. She was left with 5 kids, 3 boys, 2 girls. She worked day and night to feed us and clothe us, but more importantly, to plant in our hearts values for life and principles for living. I learned later that these values for life and principles for living are so magnificently applicable in an educational institution. That really, if you profoundly want to educate people, not merely train them. When you train someone, you show them the how. When you educate someone, you teach them the why. The person who knows the how will always have a job, but the person who knows the why will always be their boss. It's about the why in our life. It's about the educational process. After all, the word education comes from a Greek word, eduko, which means to change from within, to transform personhood, to make a person all that he or she can be. And so my mother would say to me things like this: who you spend time with is who you become. The environment in which you choose to live will pretty much determine the person you become. I believed her. I thought of the koi fish. Think about a koi fish. You put a koi fish in a fish ball, and it never grows to more than about 2 inches in size. You take the koi fish out of the fish ball, throw it in a lake somewhere, what happens to the koi fish? It grows to about 1 foot in size. Well, what happens? Well, what happens is the koi fish in the fish ball didn't understand the art of the possible. You put the koi fish in a bigger pond, and all of a sudden, the koi fish grows to about 1 foot in size. That's exactly what we do at Horatio Alger. We take students who have sometimes been entrapped in circumstances, and we open up the doors of opportunity and hope and possibility and say, oh yes, you can. You are enough. When God breathed in your nostrils and gave you life, God intended for you to become extraordinary. So my mother said that. Mariana and I love it, Jim, in Washington, D.C., when we have these lunches with the students, with the scholars, and we sit around the table and we hear their stories, like you shared with us last night, and we're just humbled by young people who are on their way to change the world. And change the world, you're doing it. And so are thousands more who are scholars of Horatio Alger. My mother would say to me, what you choose is what you get. So education, higher education, is about giving choices to people, allowing them to compete in a world that's globally competitive, ever-changing, demanding environment. I can't resist, I gotta tell you this. I have a friend, his name is Jack. You're not gonna believe this. My friend Jack has been married 8 times. Speaking about choices, 8 times. The last time he got married, we all printed bumper stickers that said, hunk if you're being married to Jack. Life is about choices. You know what education is about? It's about ridding people of to-do lists and focusing people on to-be lists. Not all the transactional stuff I've got to do every day, but all the possibility of who I can become, the state of becoming, to be. And sometimes to become, we have to stop doing some things. So I like to say to our students that the circumstances in which you find yourself will not determine where you end up. They only define where you start. That's what Horatio Alger shouts from the mountaintop. It doesn't matter where you are today. There are opportunities and possibilities that lie ahead. There are no such thing as unrealistic dreams. only unrealistic timelines. Speaking of choices, it's all about mindset. Dr. Carol Dweck, a professor at Stanford University, wrote a wonderful book called Mindset. If you haven't read it, it's really a great book. And she talks about people having growth mindset versus people having a fixed mindset. A young lady came to see me one day, a student. She said, Mr. President, I have a problem. I said, what's your problem? She said, everybody hates me. She said, my friends hate me. She said, my professors hate me. She said, even my parents hate me. I have to be honest with you, after I spoke with that lady for 20 minutes, I hated her. It's all about a growth mindset. It's all about communicating with people in a way that they can understand. That's the essence of education, building bridges of understanding so people can really understand. Marianne and I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. The oldest is called Ramsey. It's a boy. Ramsey is 42 years old. When Ramsey was about 2 years of age and I left our home in the morning, I said to him, Ramsey, when I come back here tonight, and Ramsey was a bit rambunctious. I'm sure none of you can relate to that. I said, when I come back here tonight, if your mom says you misbehaved, I'm going to have to punish you. That's my job. I'm your dad. I love you. And I want you to have a wonderful life. So if I come tonight and she says you misbehaved, I have no choice but to punish her. I came back that night, and Mariana said, well, yeah, Ramsey was kind of a naughty boy today. So I called him over. I said, Ramsey, remember I told you when I left here this morning, I'm going to punish you if you misbehave. You misbehave, so now I have to punish you. And gently and softly, I let him have it a little bit on his behind. I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Speaking about communicating. Ramsey stood there with little tears tumbling down his cheek. I don't know why God made kids cry like that, like cultured pearls, one after the other, to make us parents feel so guilty. He was just coming down with little tears. And I said, Ramsey, I had to punish you. I'm your father. I want you to have a good life. Because I love you, that's why I punished you. And he looked at me and he said, Daddy, he said, I don't want you to love me anymore. So my mother says all about choices, how we communicate, how we choose to do what we do in life. And then she said one more thing. She said, how you change is how you succeed. There is no choice in that. The world is ever changing. Students in colleges today are not going to compete with someone in a state neighboring their state. They're going to compete with people from BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, countries in the middle, and countries beyond. They have no choice but to change. Unfortunately, for the timid, change is frightening. And for the comfortable, change is threatening. And of the 4,000 institutions of higher education in America, 4-year colleges, many are comfortable, and many have to change, and change in measurable and meaningful ways if we are to keep higher education very much in step with the world that we're all experiencing and the world that's unfolding before us. So let me show you what I mean. This is really the most important formula of all when you think about human behavior, when you think about behavioral economics, when you think about how people transform themselves, how we can become. This drives everything about us. I'm an immigrant who came to America, believe that the streets of America are paved with gold. Not literally, of course not, but figuratively. And therefore, I lost myself in getting an education, worked 10 hours a day to get my education. I didn't complain. I worked 17 hours to build my first business because I believed that in America, amazing things can happen to those who work hard enough and smart enough. That's the message of Horatio Alger. The American dream is alive and well for those who believe it. And the thing about it is this: our beliefs lead to our behaviors, and our behaviors lead to our results. So the thing is, when someone is not getting what they want out of life, we tend to talk to them about changing their behavior, when really that's not the essence of it at all. The essence of it is their belief system. So if you look at universities today, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, challenges and opportunities, it lies in the belief system of the faculty or the administration of those universities. Now, clearly, 200 or 300 or 400 universities will do well regardless of what happens. They're Ivy Leagues, or they're heavily endowed, they have a tremendous history and legacy and tradition, and they'll survive. But let me speak today about the 3,500. We have a lot of challenges lying ahead. Or maybe the 1,000 or 1,500 who are on the brink of being broke or broken. And so what do we need to have these right beliefs? We need coaching. First, my mother was my hero, my model, my mentor. Now I recognize, as you do, that Horatio Alger is the coaches and the models for these young men and women who enter our zone and who become the leaders of tomorrow. So really, it's all about beliefs. What is it that we believe? Dennis Waitley, my friend, said, it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. Think about the power of Horatio Alger. It's taking someone who believes they're not and telling them, oh yes, you are. You're enough. We're going to help you in a measurable way to make good things happen. Much has been written about universities, you know that. Peter Drucker was my hero. You know, I read everything Peter Drucker ever wrote about management and leadership. And Peter Drucker back in 1997 said 30 years from now, the university campuses will be relics. Universities won't survive. Peter Drucker has long gone to heaven. He might be disappointed to know that university is doing just fine. We've lost 100 or 200 in the last decade or so, but universities are still here. Here's a professor from Harvard who said half of colleges will close within 15 years. He said that in 2011. Maybe they're all going to close in the next 3 or 4 years. But if they don't, those predictions are inaccurate. They're incomplete. They didn't really say it the way they should. Look at the books written about higher education. There are hundreds of books written about higher education, telling us that the world is coming to an end, that education is not worth much anymore. And yet, there is hope. Here's a book I'm reading in the moment. Somebody gave me this book. It's really a good book. It's called Pivot, P-I-V-O-T. It's written by two college presidents. And allow me, please, to read you a paragraph from this book. Resistance to change had not been significantly challenged in higher education until the explosion of the digital age. The movement into a digitized information age has altered the very foundation of education, and many colleges and universities have been slow to realize it. As the corporate sector found itself in a constant state of adaptation in order to reflect rapid market disruption, higher education remained largely separate from such patterns. Once isolated in a state of stasis, higher education now experiences the realities of the marketplace within its own walls. The demands of a rapidly evolving digital world, the democratization of knowledge, the availability and access of content, and the fierce market demands of demographic change, combined with price sensitivity and public scrutiny of higher education, all of these have illuminated and amplified the academy's shortcomings. As a vital sector of the society, those shortcomings are now exposed. And it's up to higher education to stand tall and acknowledge that the world is changing and that we have to create programs and curricula, that we have to reorient faculty and staff, that we have to attract administrators who understand that while a university may not be a business, it must be run in a business-like manner. After all, university has a service that it sells, it collects revenue for it, it expenses what it needs to expense, and then protects itself for generations to come. So I am hopeful about the future of higher education. I also acknowledge that much of what happens in higher education, dear friends, is dependent on what happens in K through 12. Because after all, where do we get our students in universities? They come from high school graduates. What's happening in K through 12? A lot is happening, and not all of it is good. And you're familiar with much of it. Shifting demographics in a big way in America affect education. In my own district, in Guilford County, in the state of North Carolina, I'm told that there are about 70 languages spoken in our school system. Imagine that change. Imagine the adaptation of an administration and faculty who must deal with those kind of cultural and societal differences. Talent availability. Many school systems are struggling finding teachers who want to teach in environments that become very different. Many have shifted to charter and private schools. Again, in North Carolina, I see a lot of that. These are tremendous challenges that sometimes leave a lot of students behind. Learning anywhere, anytime. Technology has taught us that you can do this on your computer and beyond. Enrollment is down in many school districts. Absenteeism is up. Those are things we should be concerned about. Test scores are down, and regretfully, in many places, violence is up. And when those kids, if they make it through high school, come to colleges and universities, why the environment is different. And universities have to deal with those realities in dramatic ways and in dynamic ways. And of course, tenure. Believe it or not, lots of school systems have tenure, and tenure is a serious issue for many of them. But when we talk about higher ed, which is what I want to talk about today, which is the field that we're in, although Horatio Alger has acknowledged that it's not enough to just deal with high school students who are seniors, but now, as I understand, we've got juniors coming into the system as well, which I think is very brilliant to bring them in on an earlier record and have them go through that cycle. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Families today, when they send their kid to college, expect all these things, convenience and choice, and mostly return investment. Is college worth it? When a family sends their student to Hype University, they're spending at least $65,000 a year, assuming they don't get any scholarships. That's a lot of money, after-tax money. In 4 years, 5 years, that's almost $400,000. They expect return investment. I want my kid to get a job, start a business, do something with their life that's worthwhile. Affordability is a big deal. That's why Horatio Alger enters the field, to say that there are many students who are very capable who need to be helped. Affordability. Let me show you about student debt. This is what's happening in America today. Today, the average cost for college, tuition fees, room and board is up 175% since 1980. This is all colleges, private and public. You can imagine what it is like in just private schools. And in 2021, it's about an average of $26,000. That includes in-state and out-state averaged out. It's remarkable. Enrollment declines, not just the birth rate, but there are lots of people who are choosing other avenues for their education or not any higher education. And so I'll show you what's happened to enrollment. Take a look at this chart. In 1985 to 2010, we're doing just fine. 2010 to 2020, we lost 11% in enrollment in higher education. 11%. There are lots of predictions today that in 2025, as we continue to slide down, we're going to lose another 10 or 11%. Now, the big schools are not going to worry about that at all. But a lot of small schools, you lose 10%. You lost enough revenue. You got to cut enough programs. This is the beginning of the downfall and the demise of those institutions. And those institutions, in many cases, are rural, and they serve populations that need them very, very much. So emerging college alternatives. Amazon said, look, you can get a certificate. We don't need you to get a college degree to work with us. You get a certificate, we'll help you get it. Starbucks went to Arizona State and said, let's do a program for our employees, and on and on. The innovative process is moving. The world is changing fast in higher education. Diversity and inclusion is big. We want our universities to be a microcosm of society. Tenure is huge. And then when things go downhill, you begin to see why higher education today is struggling in many cases, and why Horatio Alger has a huge opportunity. We're working with the students, but I challenge all of us to think how we can work with universities, the leadership they're in, to enlighten them, to help them, to take them to a different level of understanding and cognizance about the future in which we all live. And mental health issues. Did you ever, when you went to college, did you ever think this is a big issue? Today we have to have counseling departments with psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors, because our young people today are not as strong as when you were coming up. It's all about feelings. This made me feel bad. And the world's coming to an end, and suicide rates are up. And it's a frightening thing to think about. So let me just show you some statistics here, just general statistics. 80% of students graduate from high school. 65% of those enroll in college within 1 year. 64% of those graduate from college within 6 years. 4 years is much worse. In 2019, more than 33% of U.S. adults have a bachelor's degree. For Black Americans and Hispanics, the numbers are significantly lower. In 2021, private universities were down 14.8% in enrollment. This is an average. This is the year post-COVID. In 2019-20, in 1920, tuition at public colleges averaged $10,000, private colleges $33,000, and that's just tuition, fees, room, board, other fees. So these are serious pieces of information that we have to be aware of. It's hard to talk about challenges and opportunities in higher education without telling the truth. And the truth is that today, business people, when we ask them, tell me please, when you hire these graduates from colleges, from fine colleges, why do some of them fail? Why do some of them not perform well? And this is what they tell us, that these students come very, very learned in their discipline, but they don't know much about coachability, emotional intelligence, motivation, temperament. They don't fail because of technical competence. They are good at what they do. Biologists are good biologists. Mathematicians are good mathematicians, but they don't know how to get along with people. Lead teams, communicate and connect, build bridges of understanding, be solution finders. That's the future. And I believe we in Horatio Alger can have a remarkable impact beyond what we do now in affecting the future of higher education in a meaningful way. Hype University, we did a study. Here's the study. Just a little, no, this is something different. I want to show you these words, these qualities. You tell me. How do colleges test for these? You tell me. How do colleges teach for all these qualities that we must possess if we are to be holistically educated, if we are prepared to deal with every issue in life? We're no longer dealing with a continental world, we're dealing with a global world that goes way beyond our boundaries. There are more students in China today learning English as a second language than there are native English speakers in the entire world. Tell me we don't have a challenge in America as we look forward in higher education. Horatio Alger is not about appropriating money to students who need it. Horatio Alger is about changing the world through these scholars who will have the opportunity to go to college, but have the opportunity to truly impact and influence our future in a measurable and meaningful way. So at Hype University, we asked these questions of 500 CEOs of large companies. We said, please tell us, of these two sets of skills, which would your other colleges instill in college graduates? Technical skills, knowing the discipline in which you major, or life skills, knowing how to do life, how to work with others. And here's what they said: technical skills 35%, life skills 65%. They're not saying that we don't want someone to know, computer science if they're computer scientists. Of course, that's a given. What they're saying is colleges are not doing as good a job as they should. That's one of the biggest challenges about universities today, is that when you graduate, are you ready for life? And if not, I think colleges is missing the point. We asked the question in reverse: of these two sets of skills, which do you think colleges and universities are best instilling in recent college graduates? Look what they said. Technical skills, they do a great job. Not so with life skills. After all, I say this respectfully. I have 450 faculty members, all PhDs, all have gone to magnificent schools. Now, I need them because they're experts in the field, because they create college in the field. But I have to support that with in-residence programs, people who've run businesses, people who've met payrolls, people who've been there, to enable our students to learn the realities, the foundational realities about having a life filled with success and a life framed with significance. So it's not about creativity, it's about innovation. Creativity is about doing things differently, that's lovely. Innovation is about doing things better. Education must rise to that level of saying we've got to make sure people do things better, because that's the only way they're going to be transformed. So life is about transformation. What is transformation? Growing to achieve our extraordinary potential. Every scholar at Horatio Alger is fortunate and grateful because you help them uncover and discover their fullest potential. I don't want us thinking just about the fact that we give scholarships. We give tons of scholarships. We're planting seeds of greatness in the minds, hearts, and souls of these students. It's why I left successful businesses to become a university president at age 56. I've never regretted a day of it. I see the impact and influence we can bring to young people's lives. It's meaningful. It's spectacular. Horatio Alger, golly, you want to talk about impact? Just let the numbers do the walking. I mean, look at these numbers. 37,000 scholars and alumni, $262 million invested. But here's the real clicker. Look at that graduation rate. Horatio Alger scholars graduate at a 71% graduate. It may not sound like a lot to you if you compare them to a Harvard graduate. This is an average. But just keep in mind that this number compared to 16% low-income students graduate in America at a 16% level. Look what Horatio Alger is doing, beating that by 4 or 5 times. That's a remarkable achievement. We don't play up as much. Terry and Steph, well, we ought to play it up, because I can tell you that's a very difficult thing to do with large numbers. This year alone, 1,800 new scholars. Look at the numbers, $18 million. It's unbelievable. 2022, look at this profile, $25,000. The average profile of a Horatio Alger scholar family is $25,000. There's no way on earth you can uncover and discover ample opportunities unless somebody helps you, unless somebody holds your hand and marches you forward with them to find success and significance in life. But what gets me about this number is this one. 3.89, unweighted, unbelievable number. And 55% of our students come from first generation. Be proud of these numbers. These are remarkable numbers. Every school is working hard to get there. In 1984, we just gave 7 scholarships worth $35,000. Look what happened to the numbers. Do you know what hits me about this slide? This one. 1,100 colleges and universities have been touched by the Horatio Alger baton. Remarkable. Opportunities and challenges in higher education need all of us every day to make good things happen. And this association is doing it. But this is the power of Horatio Alger. This is what higher education needs more and more of to succeed in an ever-changing future. Look what this association provides for these scholars. Money is only one piece of it. We're not just helping them out. We're helping them up. We're lifting them up. That's the future. A kid like me who went to college, an anonymous doctor in Goldsboro, North Carolina, picked up the tab for the difference in what I could pay and what I owed the school. And I never knew it till I graduated. And the president said, someone anonymous just picked up the tab. It's amazing. I bet every one of you has a story that can inspire our hearts in a wonderful way. So this is our power. You know, I like what Albert Einstein said. He said, don't be a person of success. Be a person of value. If we can create in these scholars value, they'll just climb and climb and climb. Let me just show you something interesting. Anybody likes Hershey's Kisses here? Hershey's, I love Hershey's Kisses. Love Hershey's Kisses. This is 1 pound of chocolate filled with little Hershey's Kisses. You know how much this costs? $4 plus tax. That's all this costs. The irony is, this is also 1 pound of chocolate. Chocolate, chocolate. 1 pound, 1 pound. $4, $55. 14 times the price of this. And one has to beg the question, what in the world is the difference? Is it marketing? Is it branding? Is it the quality of the chocolate? I think not. I think it's very simple, really. People buy Hershey's to eat. People buy Godiva to give. Hence, the value of Godiva is enhanced measurably. It serves a different purpose. You don't believe me? When was the last time you saw anybody pay $55 for a box of Godiva and ate it on the way home? It has to be one lonely, pitiful, helpless human being turned down by both Match.com and eHarmony.com to do something that stupid. But this baby here, you put it next to you in the car, you eat this on the way home, you keep eating it till diarrhea kicks in. That's a fact. So what is it that Horatio Alger does? It's like the koi fish. Hershey's are delicious. They're good. There's a big market share. Godivas are delicious. They have a big market share. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other. I'm suggesting the usefulness of one is very different than the other. And therefore, the value of the more useful one is significantly better than the usefulness of the other. That's our work at Horatio Alger. We can talk about challenges in higher education till we're blue in the face. We will not solve them all in this session or in a 3-day symposium. But what we ought to be focused on, what I am focused on, is every individual, every student, every creature that God breathed in their nostrils and gave them life and created them in His own image. And say, how can we help this one and this one and this one, knowing that if just 10% of them go on to do amazing things, the world will change. And some of them will become professors and presidents, and in their own way, as I've attempted to do, can reculture an organization and recreate for it a symbolic mission and values that are applicable for a changing world. That's what we do. Oh, I wish we had several hours to chit-chat about it and answer questions. But I'll tell you this, I love the guy called Josh Groban. You might know Josh Groban. Wonderful guy. I had him speak at our graduation. Every year at convocation, we play his song for the moms and dads who leave their kids on our campus. This is the words of the song. When I am down, and oh, my soul so weary, when troubles come, and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. Doubt not, my friends, higher education must transform itself. Don't underestimate the power and the influence that this association cumulatively and individually can bring forth to make that happen. Never underestimate the power of lighting one candle in the life of one student. The opportunities for higher education are going to multiply when we all acknowledge, when higher education acknowledge. It isn't about the past. Our yesterdays are our yesterdays. It's about our tomorrows, what we can do together to make the world a better place. I am proud to be a member of the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans. But I'm doubly grateful that what pulls us together is a mission to ensure that the future of this country, future of Canada, future of the world lies in the success and significance of our scholars. Small ways in big ways. We place them in this lake and they become bigger and greater and more influential. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for who you are. And God bless you.